I can't say I don't get it anymore. I do get it. I do.
Yeah.
It is a challenge, and it's more than, well, for me anyways, from a leadership and professional etiquette standpoint, it's definitely that's not there.
Right.
Or they wouldn't be fighting.
Yep.
But the
Right.
conditioning and like what we've been talking about, this whole narcissism thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is prevalent. Thankfully to you and yet the lesson that you taught me. Now I see it clearer. In fact, I go back in my history from way back when, back in mid 80s, seeing now I look back, that was narcissism, what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just mean and bully people. They were narcissists.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Well,
that's the next topic, right?
that's the topic. So we're just
Yeah,
sliding right into it.
yeah,
Narcissism. I did a podcast recently. I think I titled it, What's Up with All the Narcissists? Because it
yeah,
seems to be so incredibly prevalent. And it's possible that we know what to look for more these days, and that's why we think it's more prevalent, or
right,
John, it's just more prevalent.
right.
And one of the theories I have, and this is based on some of the studies I've done and training I have received in this field, let alone life experience, um, we are being programmed in a very narcissistic society.
Yes,
And people will listen to this and watch this all around the world. But I think this is a trend that is trending worldwide. I don't think we're isolated here in United States. I think that it's a global problem. And we are being programmed to and spoken to and advertised to and bombarded by digital products to the degree that it's very narcissistic because it's all about source. It's sourcing. It's designed to source whatever we have and offer it to the person who wants from us, whether it be our time, our money, our attention, our likes, our clicks, you name it. They're asking or demanding or pulling on us for something. And it's like we're swimming in this sea of never ending opportunity to be pulled on and to feed the supply to the narcissists. That's just globally and culturally. Then there are actual individuals. And I do want to make sure that we make the distinction right here and right now. There are people diagnosed with NPD. So that's narcissistic personality disorder. It is a clinical diagnosis. It does require a checklist, criteria, and a proper assessment and evaluation to actually clinically diagnose something like that. Just like with autism, and my audience, my friends watching know I talk about this in terms of autism now.
mm,
People are hijacking diagnostics these days, John, to an alarming rate.
right.
They've blown the parameters of what autism, the umbrella that it falls under, to the degree that I'm troubled by it, frankly. I'm troubled by it because it affects the people who are profoundly affected by autism.
Right.
Okay. And it diminishes the possibility for them to get resources when any Tom, Dick, and Harry who has light sensitivities or sound sensitivities is going to suddenly now, or, feels like their little ADD is going to now call themselves autism. It drives me nuts because it's so inappropriate and it's downright offensive. That's another show. But as it
There's another
relates
show.
to, and I'm doing another show about it. But as it relates to narcissism, we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing. Do you notice? Everybody's a narcissist. Oh, they're such a narcissist. Well, that's so narcissistic. So we're taking this word and we're blowing it up outside of its clinical application. Um, but there's a few things we do know, and we know what the behaviors look like and sound like and feel like. We know that. And John, the other thing we know is that even if there's not a clinical diagnosis, some of these cluster B, they're called personality disorders in the DSM. Some of them, and there's narcissism, NPD, there's BPD, which is borderline personality, there's antisocial personality disorder, there's histrionic personality disorder. They will all vibe and interweave with some of the same manifestations and behaviors with
Mm,
specific differences. And then there's malignant narcissism and grandiose and all sorts of different little subcategories.
Mhm.
But that's also what makes it so alarming, is that there are the spectrum is very wide now,
Right, right.
and there are so many possibilities and options for people to fall into these categories. I think the way we've been programmed in society is leading to more narcissism and more people who suffer from this disorder. What say you? You work
Yeah,
with people in leadership positions all the time. Are you seeing this too?
I do. I didn't understand it 10, 15 years ago when I first started doing this 15 years ago. I saw a behavior and it was foul. I experienced it directed at me at one time many years ago, back when I first became in leadership roles. This is way back in the late 80s. Just thought it was their mean and I don't care for that behavior, so I just leave. I just walk away from it.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still do. I have a boundary when it comes to that kind of behavior, like, and I don't want to be treated that way.
Yep.
But and to support my clients, they come to me, what do I do, John? What do I do, John? They're being this way. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to call it. So I teach boundaries. In fact, that's the major topic of the month with my clients, is about setting boundaries, because they don't even know what it is.
Wow.
And how to set boundaries with somebody that has the characteristics of narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when someone says that word, I keep my mouth shut. I don't say much about that word, that term. But if someone says it, I always ask them, what does that mean?
Ah.
What is a narcissist? And they don't know what to say. They just clam right up, and which is good, because it would be a disservice to be calling somebody something that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It was
True.
slandering. It would be slandering them, especially if you do it publicly, right?
Yes.
So bringing that awareness, and thanks to you for all the lessons that I've learned, it's like going to school, uh, to be able to give them some tidbits of, go do your research before you start calling somebody something, especially publicly.
Yep.
And so everybody learns something, including myself.
Yeah.
But it is horrifying, though. It's so prevalent, the
Yes.
behavior.
Yeah. You know, as people engage in this sort of flinging the diagnosis around, I think
Mm,
one of the things that if you have ever been narcissistically abused, and this is what I wanted to kind of talk about this, because
yeah.
boundaries is where we want to land. We want to give people sets of tools like boundaries, and how to determine whether or not they really are in a situation where they're being narcissistically abused, whether it's a clinically diagnosed narcissist or not. And the
Right.
reason is because you may have somebody who doesn't have a clinical diagnosis of this disorder, it's pervasive disorder. Um, they may behave in ways that are narcissistic like behaviors,
Mhm.
where they are sourcing off of and out of your life somehow in some way. And it feels awful. It feels terrible. And it's incredibly confusing, because there are so many behaviors that people deploy in order to continue garnering from their source. There are many manipulative tactics, including gaslighting and triangulation and splitting. One day you're an angel, the next day you're the devil. Triangulation is having another party engage in now blaming you for something that maybe they really did. And gaslighting is just making you feel crazy. Like,
Mm.
I never said that. What are you talking about? Listen, you're really, wow, you're out there. Like, pretending they didn't say something that they did, or pretending they didn't do something that they did. Or, John, what so many people find so hurtful and so confusing, there's this cognitive dissonance that takes place when you address a behavior and they turn it on you. as though it's either your fault that they did that behavior. Well, if you were paying more attention to me, I wouldn't be looking this way. Why don't you think about how neglectful you've been of me and our relationship this whole time? And if that weren't the case, if you weren't so busy doing that, I wouldn't have to this. It's so classic.
Yeah.
And it happens in businesses, in families, in personal relationships. So one of the things I want to acknowledge is that for people who have suffered through this, it's horrible. It can make you feel
Mm.
physically sick. It can make you feel crazy. It makes you feel alone and confused. You actually start questioning your own sanity.
Right.
I've done this.
Mm.
I've literally said, is it me? Am I way off here? Are
Mm.
my instincts off? Am I overreacting? You go through this then whole problem of this double bind where you're seeing things that aren't good and don't make sense. They violate your conscience, and yet you're being convinced that they're totally normal. And you're the one who's out in left field. So, regardless of a diagnosis, here's what's important. If you're feeling any of the ways I just described, it's problematic. Forget the label. Forget the
Mm.
label. It could be
Right. Right.
many different things. It could be
Yes.
all of the above. Forget the label. That's not important. It is how you are feeling in your life right now, or in this situation, or in this relationship that matters. And that is all that matters. Yeah.
That's a very good point there, Stephanie. Forget the label.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, when someone says so and so is a narcissist, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. So now I know enough to ask them, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And pretty much say, not putting it that way about forget the label, but make sure they clearly understand what a narcissist is.
Mm.
And it takes a trained professional to be able to diagnose it. That's a key point right there. I'm not a professional. I can't diagnose it. So
Yeah.
um, what few times I've used that as a reference, um, I look back and those people most likely are narcissists.
Yes.
But me personally could not diagnose it.
Yeah.
And it's scary though. It's so prevalent.
It is. And I think what happens to people is when they get hung up on the label and they start perseverating on the label, is it really this? Is it this? They start doing a lot of
Yeah,
research into it.
yeah.
And then they get hung up in this research bound. And then people like maybe yourself, I know, like myself, if we care about people, we really want to know what's wrong. And this is the kicker. Oy, we want to help.
Right.
Oh, I know I can help. Oh, I think I can help. Oh, if we
Mm.
only just did this. Oh, if I could get him to go to counseling. Oh, if like you go through all this whole song and dance of all they need is some understanding. Now I know what it is. Now that you have a label or an identification, now you know how to navigate it from there. No, you don't, and you never will, because the label is not what matters. It's what the dynamic is doing to your life and your sanity.
It's interesting you bring that up because the what keeps coming to mind is about learning how to set boundaries.
Mhm.
And I'm a big on putting everything in the form of a question.
Yes.
So if someone's being has the traits of being a narcissist and they are doing something that is narcissistic, it's just ask them why. Why are you gaslighting me? Why are you bullying? Why are you yelling at me?
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, I don't know. It seems to work to kind of put things in place. But
Yeah.
see, for me, they're just not in my life. You know what I mean? It's not like personal friends, wonderful friends, but they have those traits.
Yeah.
I just put distance between them. That's all. I just
You're wonderfully boundaried, John. That's what separates you from most of the rest of us, because you have mastered the
yeah.
skill of being well boundaried. And that's what you're going to help us with today. But quick funny story about the questions. I started to deploy that specific tool. I'm going to call it a tool. I almost
Sure.
said tactic, but this isn't war, so we don't need tactics. We need tools. I started to utilize that on somebody that I do have to interface with once in a while. And when I said, and I love it because it's so brilliant, the why question. And when I said, why are you raising your voice right now? And the answer was because you don't listen. Yeah. Because and just be prepared. These are the kinds of answers you get from
Sure.
people who are intent on controlling a conversation. This is all about control. Remember, that dynamic is all about control.
You keep
So they have to turn it on you. Yeah, they have to turn it on you. It's about controlling the dynamic, controlling the conversation, controlling the situation. And so I thought, oh crap, how am I going to get out of this? But again, another why question. Well, why do you believe I don't ever listen? Why do you believe that? Well, I mean, it's just that I've said this or that, and I feel like, oh, you okay. Oh, I heard you say you feel like. So why do you suppose you feel like that, even though we've talked about this several times and always came to the same conclusion, you know? And so it's taking that why, John, to the nth degree that really starts to diffuse. It starts not always, and again, everybody is different. But if you continue along the line and don't get stuck in the trap, like, oh, great, now they're back, now it's back on me again. I don't ever listen. Yes, I do. What are you going to
Yeah.
do? Fight? What are you going to deny it and say, yes, I do? You're the one that doesn't listen. Well, now you're back into the crazy making cycle. So continuing on with the why is a very smart tool.
Sure.
And it works because it starts to diffuse the energy behind that comment. You never listen. Never? Why do you say I never listen? Or why do you? Anyway, I love that.
Oh, yeah. That's another good question to ask, though. 'Cause you're
Uh-huh.
not blaming them for anything or accusing them of anything. You're just asking, why do you think I don't? But
Yes.
I go like 2 or 3 times asking, why are you yelling? If they use the because you don't listen, I said, but why are you yelling?
Mm,
Okay, maybe I'm not, but still, why are you yelling at me? And
right.
another excuse comes out, and then another one, and after that diffuses things quite a bit.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Just keep asking the same question because the safety mechanism that we all have in us, and especially somebody that's being put on the spot,
Yeah.
because they need to be, um, a lesson is taught there for that person that they don't have to yell anymore. They don't have to.
True. They can
I
be
don't.
heard.
Someone said it's because I'm Italian,
Oh,
and I said, well, I'm an Italian. I don't yell.
exactly. That's a good
Use
point.
my hands a lot, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I know that most people who counsel those who have been narcissistically abused or otherwise very dramatically affected by the behaviors that people with
Yes.
narcissistic tendencies tend to kind of dole out. Um, at the end of the day, I don't think I've heard one expert that has disagreed that the best recourse for yourself is to leave the situation.
Yes.
And I think you've even mentioned, you and I have talked about bullies before.
Mm,
And how do you deal with a bully? How do you handle a bully? I mean, there are a lot of different ideas on how to handle a bully. But at the end of the day, narcissistic behavior, I think, falls under that category, right? Because they're same
yeah.
type of tactics:
It is
control,
very similar,
force,
yeah.
intimidation, or manipulation. Um, so if you can't, at least right now, yeah, let's say it's your employer and you're looking for a career change and you simply cannot make that change for your family's sake or whatever the case right now. So you have to remain in contact. Where on earth do you start with the boundaries?
It's a challenging question. It really is.
An
It goes back
important
to
one.
asking questions kind of thing. I know that from my own personal experience in confronting somebody that's like that, that's being mean or whatever you want to call it, whatever title you want to give it.
Yeah.
Um, Even if you ask them, they get very defensive, and just like you were saying earlier, when you're asking them why, it's always my fault, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's a term I've been using lately because I just like it. It's like by staying in my own lane.
Mm-hmm.
Just do so if it's in a job related thing. Most people think that they don't have a choice, so they have to stay and deal with a narcissist or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, something we do have a choice. You know, there are many choices. There's nothing, even no choice is still a choice, right?
True.
Everything that we confront that is maybe not serving us, we do have a choice. We could leave. We could learn how to navigate a boss that's narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that word came out right.
It's a tongue
So
twister. Narcissistic. Yeah.
narcissistic tendencies.
So
I
where
well,
do
I
the
was going to say
boundaries?
I like the learning how to deal with it, how to navigate it, because they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That behavior is everywhere.
The behavior is everywhere.
I believe
Yes.
so.
So where do you need to start? If you want to start to
Mm,
construct some boundaries,
mm,
and let's say it's a work situation,
mm.
where do you have to start? Do you start with you and creating some of your own internal boundaries? Because at the end of the day, we are agreeing to be treated a certain way,
Yes.
at least for a certain measure of time. And John, that starts here and here. It starts in our minds and in our hearts. It starts with some type of paradigm that we are believing about ourselves or our
Right.
situation or our place in this world
Yeah.
that allows us to believe we deserve to be bullied, or we don't have a voice, or we don't have a choice, or we fill in the blanks. So or you know, or we or this is just life. Well, there are people like that everywhere, so just learn to suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah.
What has to change in our mindset
Yeah.
before we can actually have the confidence to step forward and construct boundaries with other people? I mean, because we don't have them for ourselves and with ourselves. How do we step beyond that?
It's a very challenging question. It really is.
Am I stumping you? Am I stumping you today?
So you know something, you brought up a point earlier about a spectrum, that
Mhm.
this spectrum, right? Well, the same with how we tolerate that behavior. There's a spectrum of
Mhm.
how I manage so that manage that behavior. So if it's a job and it's a really good job and it pays me a lot of money, then there's a certain spectrum within a spectrum that I'm willing to deal with that behavior.
Yeah.
So it isn't, but you know something, it may be a little unfair because I've been doing this for, almost 20 years and have learned how to navigate what I know now is narcissistic behavior. Didn't know it 20 years ago.
Yep.
I've dealt with it in one way way back when I just left. I stayed in my own lane and watched all these people getting tortured basically in this job I had. And I just mind my own business. Fortunately, I had whatever I was doing, I could. Had my own
Mm.
place
Yeah.
in this big shop. But when he ran out of people to abuse, he did come to me and I just walked out.
Hmm.
I almost
Did you
doubled my
tell
income.
him? Did you tell him why you were walking out?
No, it wasn't worth it. It was just what good would it have done? Back then, I didn't know. I didn't have the skills I have now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a blessing because I almost doubled my income when I left. I was a young
Yeah.
man. I didn't really know, but the what my talents were and what they were worth
Mm.
back then.
Yep.
So I think I made the right choice. But years later, started seeing that same kind of behavior and started learning how. to navigate it. And that's where I started way back, even before I started doing the personal mastery work, to ask questions. Why are you doing that? You know, why are you
Mm-hmm.
yelling? Why did you blame them? You know,
Yeah.
and they shrink. They just it deflate. Their
Mm-hmm.
egos just go away, you know. So what I'm not sure of, now we're talking 30 years ago, right? Maybe longer. Were they really narcissists?
Mm.
Or were they just bullies
Yeah.
or big fat egos?
Right. So, was there something when you decided to leave? Was there something that shifted on the inside of you that led you to that? Was it a
Yeah.
tipping point where you just had so much you just literally couldn't take anymore? Or had you been doing work on yourself to the degree that you realized that you are now constructing boundaries for yourself, what you were willing to accept from other people, the way you were willing to be treated or not? And is that what sort of prompted the exit?
Yeah. So way back then in that incident, I didn't even know what working on myself was. But
Mm,
I did, I'm gonna say that in part because I'm an introvert helped me immensely.
mhm,
Just because it's quiet and I like my alone time. And no, I just knew inside that to protect that part of me, it
mhm.
just came natural being
Okay.
an introvert. And but and not way over here introvert where I was antisocial, but certainly to know not to tolerate that kind of behavior because I watched what all those other men in that shop went through, and they were miserable and they were quitting, and
Mm.
that guy never bothered me, until he bothered me one day, you know, and I just said, it's my turn, so I'm not going to give him the pleasure of getting under my skin. That's what was on my mind at that time. But it's thereafter though that I really learned how to navigate that, whether I was introvert or not,
Mm.
was standing up and using my voice and
Mhm.
just asking them questions because I don't know how I learned that or where I learned it. But it diffuses really, really fast when you call someone out, especially the bullies, call them out.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the
Yeah,
specific things that people can do. So when you
yeah.
say call them out, call out the bully or call out the person who is bringing these narcissistic like behaviors to you, what does that look like?
Yeah, so the would be like, why are you yelling?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or if they're making a false accusation, which is quite often, jealousy in all industries is there. People will
Mm.
blame other people, and
Yeah.
it is just ask them, well, it's not true. What proof do you have? Just prove it.
Mm-hmm.
It shuts them right up because they can't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one. Is ask, what proof do you have of whatever it is that you're accusing me of? Or it's not in my job description. I've used that before.
Okay.
This is my job, and um, yeah, just using personal experiences. I had this man who was insanely jealous of. Actually, he was jealous of everybody because all he was a shipper, shipping and receiving, and everybody else
Mm-hmm.
with these craftsmen building these wonderful pieces of furniture, and
Mm-hmm.
he did not like being the cat outcast. So he would cause trouble with people. And one day he did with me, and fortunately, my boss knew the guy was lying because my boss called me into his office and said, "So there's a rumor going around that you did this, and this, whatever it was. I forget. It's 30 something years ago." And I just said, "It's not true." I said, "You watch me every day. I mean, what could it, how could I have done that? What's this guy?" And then I asked him who it was, and of course, it was this passive aggressive guy who just didn't have the skill set that the other 30 people in the company had.
Hmm.
But you know something? I never said anything to him. I went and became more of a friend to him.
The guy who accused you of something
Yeah,
falsely?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I just went up to him and just started talking more with him. I always never had a need to, but I would go down and just sit right with him, knowing he probably hated my guts, for whatever reason it was, right? And just be nice.
Hmm. What did that do?
Didn't do anything from him to me, but in me, within me, it meant that I rise above
Mm,
lying and the bullying and passive aggressive behavior.
right.
Lies.
Amazing.
Just stayed with him and a few times offered, how can I support you?
Hmm.
What are you going through? Tell me what's going on, bud.
Yeah. And this man that you're talking about was not somebody who was categorically exhibiting narcissistic like behaviors.
No,
Yeah.
but it was now that I think back, I mean, if passive aggressive behavior fits in that category, then maybe he is or was. I don't
Hmm.
know. But just how to deal with that, how to I was setting my boundaries with that man. Just not in a way, don't cross this line. Setting the boundaries that I'm here, I love my job, and I don't care what you say about me. I'm gonna be your friend kind of a mentality.
Hmm. The old kill him with kindness
Kill them with
concept.
kindness. 'Cause,
Hmm.
when people start seeing that going on, the in that instance, me,
Yeah. Well, and the distinction, of course, would be that if somebody has been narcissistically abusive and
mm,
manipulative to you, um, that killing them with kindness will not work for them, for that
right,
specific type of personality. That
that's
will
right.
help them to understand that they've got you exactly where they want
Yeah, yeah,
you. And you will be their slave and their servant, and you will suffer some more. But in a case, it almost sounds like the guy you're talking about sounds like he may have been going through something in his own life that was challenging. Maybe he was really, as you mentioned, very envious of the position that the craftsmen were in, and he was not in the kind of position he wanted. He was feeling bad about himself. And so, lashing out in a way that brought down the collective in order to make himself feel a little better. There are lots of possibilities there, but it doesn't sound like he was necessarily doing that whole control manipulation
right.
scheme. Yeah.
Then if we fast forward to present day, and you and I have these conversations, and you and I know these folks, these people, men and women who are diagnosed as narcissists,
Yeah.
no doubt, right?
Yeah.
So that man from 30 years ago is an angel compared to what we're dealing with today,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
And what I notice the behavior is, in putting everything in the form of a question, is they need to be a little bit more pointed. Is why are you behaving this way? What are you getting out of it now? What's with the slander? Or what's going on here? Just really, really being pointed, not sugarcoating anything.
Hmm. And what kind of results are you getting with that? What type of responses are you hearing?
Um, Usually it's more of the same, the ghosting and the gaslighting.
Mm.
And when they don't respond, I know I've got them.
Okay.
I've cornered them, and they know they're not going to get under my skin.
Okay.
And I think that's the boundary, if you want to call it that, right? Is teaching for me as a coach, is teaching people how to not let anybody, no matter what you call them, whatever title they have, to not let them get under your skin, because that's what
Mhm.
they want.
The other important thing to remember for people dealing with these types of characteristics and behaviors is that one of the classic things that narcissists and also people with narcissistic behaviors exhibiting these behaviors, one of the things that they do classically is the discard. There's the love bombing and the discard and the push and the
Mm,
pull and the pull and the push. And it's the kind, somebody called it the carrot and the stick. Dangle the carrot out, you get
right.
close to the carrot, you think you're enjoying the carrot, and whack, you get whacked with a stick.
A good visual.
Right, it's unfortunate, but yes, but
But
it's so accurate.
meanwhile, it's
It's so accurate. Um, and so one of the things that they do is when they cannot source from you any longer, when you have depleted supply and you have shut off supply, they will discard you like trash on the curb. And so people struggle with that because then they experience the discard phase. Well, yeah, but just a little bit ago they were loving me and they were, showering me with this affection or affirmation or praise or whatever. And now suddenly I'm trash on the side of the road that they threw out of the back of their car. And it's so devastating and it's so hurtful because you thought you were in a real relationship and you weren't. You were a supply for somebody who doesn't do real relationship. They only garner supply. And so just a heads up, if that ghosting happens, it's okay. Chances are they won't try to come back around until they need or want something from you again, in which case now you have the opportunity to navigate the waters however you see fit. And it's your turn to not discard, but to not re-engage or to
right.
stay disengaged if you choose to, right? So,
Okay.
yeah.
No, go ahead. You can finish here.
Well, I just people really, it's so important to understand that and never take it personally. It doesn't matter if it's business, if it's a client,
Mm,
if it's a personal relationship. The hardest thing is to take that personally because the caring person, who's usually pretty sensitive, believes that they're in a real relationship. Even if it's work related, even if it's in a volunteer organization. John, I was in a volunteer organization. I put my heart, I was asked to lead the organization for a measure of time. I put my heart and soul into that thing. Like I thought this was a brother and a sisterhood. I thought we were all like we were a tribe. We were all fighting for a common goal and just so aligned and that we had each other's backs. And when you start shifting things just a slight bit and stop doing for everybody, boy, does the temperature change quick. I'm
yes.
telling you, it went from hot to cold right quick, real fast. And then it became very confusing. Like, wait a second. I all I did was decide I wasn't going to be doing these specific meetings anymore, or whatever. And it's just, it was confusing to me
Sure.
because
I could see,
I
yeah.
was in it as a friend and as a colleague. And it's kind of like you look around and everybody else is in it for a different reason or just looking to get something, get something. And that, again, full circle back to kind of the society we live in, this get, gimme, 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 pick me. And man, it can mess with your mind if you don't have those boundaries that you always talk about. And if you take it personally, it's not personal. It's not personal. And it's never about you.
It's easy. Don't take it personally because one of the four agreements, that book,
Yes,
don't take
yes,
it personally.
yes.
But you know something, we're conditioned to take it personally.
You're absolutely right.
We
And
are. I was conditioned.
and John, I can say that now,
Yeah.
but let me promise you, as I sit here today, oh, I took it real personal.
Mm,
In the couple of times where I've been in these situations, I took it so personally that it took me out at the knees for a long time because I didn't know then what I know now. And I didn't have the life experience then that I have now. So I took it very personally and it was devastating, devastating. And that's why people hurt so bad. devastating. So they have to get into a space of being committed to heal, going through some of the mechanisms of healing, finding themselves again, becoming boundaried internally, and then also in their relationships with the worlds that they live
Right.
in, their environment.
Yeah. Earlier, we talked about, the being in a business. So either your job, either you own a business or you are an employee. So in that realm of um, life, right, and how we deal with that kind of behavior, and then there's the personal life, the relative, the neighbor, the friend,
Yeah.
right? In the business part of it, which I deal with a lot because that's what I do, right? The advice that I give is to make sure that there's a very, very clear job description, like to the every I dotted, T crossed, and punctuation. Everything is rock solid of what your what my job description is, and what is being expected of me. And if anything comes up outside of that realm, is it needs to be put in writing.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, in doing the fact that comes up so often, I read a lot of it, articles, and believe it or not, little cartoon memes. It's really remarkable. I'll send you one of these days to
Okay.
show you what I mean. You'll understand. But the real life examples in a cartoon form of a manager trying to take advantage of one of the worker bees, and the worker bee owns them big time because they have their act together. They write down everything.
Uh,
Whatever's being said, they immediately send an email
mm-hmm.
of what was said, so that there's no two ways about it.
Good
And
idea.
that is like
That's
um
good.
that's a boundary right there. You've
Yeah.
created a boundary. You just said, this is what you said on this day.
Yeah.
Please respond if it's different, or please acknowledge, right?
Yep.
So in a workplace, we can do that now, and that's a tool, right?
Yes.
You're just mirroring what they said, and if it comes back, you have an email proof
Yeah.
conversation, and your job description has to back up. But now in personal life, this is where you get to me, where you get to practice. Um, we talked a little bit about forgiveness, right?
We have before, not today.
Yeah, so similar to being forgiving someone, so they harmed us,
Yeah.
yelled at us, swore at us, stole from us, whatever it is, and to come from a forgiving them isn't for them, it's for me. When
Right.
I forgive someone for harming me, it's not because I want them to feel good about it. It's for me that I'm no longer holding on to this energy.
Yeah. You got to
So
release that energy.
that mindset is similar in setting a boundary with somebody who's has this narcissistic behavior,
Mhm.
is coming from a place of forgiveness. The energy goes away. It's no longer about them anymore, because you know what? You know how you mentioned earlier, it was about how you felt, you took it personally.
Mm-hmm.
What if we don't take it personally when a narcissist starts picking on us?
Yeah. We'd be way ahead of the game.
Way ahead of the game.
Way ahead of the game.
So all we're doing, that's personal mastery right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And forgiveness does not need to mean, and sometimes it should not mean re-engagement.
Right.
It should not mean
Exactly.
ongoing access
Yep.
necessarily. I mean, forgiveness is of the heart, it is of the soul, and you get to hand that to God for perfect justice, because you're never going to be able to exercise perfect justice because you don't know what it is. You don't
Sure.
have the perspective to see what that perfect justice actually looks like. Um, but it certainly doesn't, and oftentimes should not mean ongoing communication, fellowship, relationship.
So, if we use the personal mastery as an example of personal development, that and like all the people I know are in this plate, and I'm in the middle of the plate, and in my inner circle of people around me, they're my best peeps. And then ones that aren't really that close to me, but I still love them, love everybody anyways, but they're out here.
Yep.
And then there's another group out here and a group out here. Well, as we grow, as we entertain personal mastery, personal development, we grow, right? We're
Mhm,
expanding and we're becoming more enlightened and more conscious.
mhm,
Well, even that inner circle of people, the closest ones, are going to drift off.
mm.
And all of a sudden,
Yes.
there's new group of people that are like-minded because they're growing like we are. You follow
Mm.
where I'm going with that?
Oh, absolutely. You're so right.
Well,
Yep.
in that circle of influence, all these folks that are in my life, be present and past, the narcissists are also drifting away.
Mhm.
Without even saying a word, we drift off.
Yeah,
I believe that their probably a subconscious motive is to always keep us close, to
absolutely.
to abuse us, right?
Yes.
But when we choose not to participate in that game, they slowly drift away.
Yes.
So I don't think it even needs words
Mhm.
unless they call and say, John, how come you're not around anymore?
Yep.
And sometimes it's worth saying because you're abusive, and sometimes it isn't worth saying anything to them.
Mhm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense to you?
It of course, and because that is the way it should be. I mean, it must be that way. Anytime there's a shift in all of that, whether it's starting with the unconscious mindset and then
Yeah,
having it manifest through your own behaviors and actions, the resonance changes. They're not resonating with you anymore, or you're not resonating with them anymore. It's that whole woo-woo vibrations thing, that you're a different vibe. They used to say that in
yeah,
the 70s, and that was or whatever, 60s, 70s. But it's so funny because from from a scientific standpoint, it's what's true. That you're not vibing with them anymore. And so they don't get what they need from you, frankly, anymore. You're not juicing them up anymore. You're not gassing them up. You're not supplying them of whatever it was that they at one point got from you, because you've superseded that behavior. You've risen above that. That's not even a default mechanism for you anymore. And when you start backing away, well, they got to look around and go look for somebody else to kind of fill your spot, because you're not available. You're not available to it. But it's such a great point. As we continue to pursue personal mastery, our inner circle changes. It oftentimes gets smaller, but
yeah,
so much better,
yes,
and so much more uh, aligned.
yeah,
And then we are contributing, and that we are being contributed to. And that
yes.
is such a sweet spot.
So the life lesson I learned, thankful for some of my mentors that helped me with this. So they saw that I was very challenged with my friends, my inner circle drifting away. Saw that I
Mm,
was very challenged with that. And what they helped me navigate is that just because they're not the inner circle doesn't mean they can't be my friends.
mhm.
We're talking friends from, 5 years old and 10 years old.
Yeah.
They're not my inner circle anymore, and that saddened me a lot. But I also knew what they said, John, just call them.
Mm,
Just because they're not your inner circle, they'll love to hear from you. So I'll
yeah.
just call my buddy Dan and say every once in a while, hey Dan, how you doing? And it'd be like it's like we were always together.
Yeah.
A year would go by, it seemed like it was just yesterday that we talked. They're
Hmm.
just not the inner circle, and that's okay. Still love each other. Yeah.
Right. No,
But
that's
in that group, not only are there really nice people, but there's also the narcissists and the bullies are all in there too.
and hopefully
You know
you're
what I'm
not
saying?
communicating. Yeah, right. Yeah, those are not the ones you typically tend to call back and check in with over the
Right,
course
right.
of a
Yeah,
day.
yes, exactly. Well, it's the same with forgiving somebody that harmed you.
Hmm.
You don't have to call them. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
teachers.
There it is again. Yes, the teacher. They are our teachers. Yes. And you will get to be their teachers as well. It's not just
Yes.
one-sided, but if you look at it as they're my teacher, what's the lesson
Yeah,
here? It's so much more
yeah.
empowering. It's so much more empowering. So I can't believe we've already chatted for an hour, but some of the tools I just want to repeat and reiterate for the family listening, the tribe, are some of those very important tools. That why question is so incredibly valuable. Why are you yelling? Or why are you accusing so and so of such and such? Or why are you accusing me of such and such? Or whatever, whatever the behavior is, it's why are you engaging this behavior? Yeah. And then if they follow up with because you're not listening, that's why I have to yell. It's another why. But yeah, but even if I weren't listening, even if that were true, why are you yelling? Or like the little trick I found that works that specific time. Why do you believe I'm not listening? What makes you believe that? Why do you think that? So that's a diffuse mechanism. Just diffuses the energy instead of going, you know what? Wait, you're telling me I don't listen. You're the one that doesn't listen. Right? You're doing, instead of this meeting fire with fire, you're the wind that just blows the fire in a different direction.
Yes. Well,
Right?
the key point there that when you are asking the question, you're not accusing anybody of anything.
No,
So it's hard for them to get defensive if all you're doing is asking a question.
absolutely.
And if they do take it personally, all you have to say is, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I want to be friends.
And again, be mindful of the why question. We
Yeah,
don't want to engage well, why are you such a narcissist? Oh.
right,
Or why are you such a beep?
right,
Right.
right,
So that's not the why question we're going for, but
right,
why are you? And then the be specific behavior. So John, another tactic tool that we talked about is that documentation, documenting things. I think that's really valuable. That's really smart, especially in a work setting or workplace where you've got your job description and then anything that falls outside of the boundaries of that, what you know to be your job that you agreed to, is documented, and everything in writing, everything responded to in writing, everything put in writing, ask for the response, because that is such a beautiful mechanism of two things. Number one, it protects you. It protects you from he said, she said, or she said, he said, or he said, he said. It protects you from that, and it also acts as a accountability tool,
yes.
which I think is so valuable. Um, how about I love the comment that you made. You could also utilize that's not, either that's not what we agreed to, or that's not part of my job description,
Right.
right? As a way of protecting your own time, your own energy, your own resources. When people try to pull from you outside of your contractual agreement or even your relationship agreement. Even in a relationship, somebody's now asking something from you that really isn't. It's non-consensual if they continue to ask, or if they take something, that's a violation because it was non-consensual. You didn't understand that when you entered the relationship, you were agreeing to that, or you wouldn't have entered the relationship. So um, being very specific about those and saying, I didn't agree to that, right? Or that's not part of the deal. Well, that's not part of the job. Yes. Okay.
Holds everybody
Anything?
accountable. I love that term. Holds people accountable. And
Yes,
how do you argue with that when you're holding someone accountable, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You don't. No,
Mm.
accountability is key. Even if just for ourselves, it's so valuable. The other thing I like that you said, one of the tools is, what proof do you have? Especially
Right.
in situations where people are placating blame or
Yeah.
trying to deflect from their bad behavior onto maybe you or somebody else and making false accusations. That what proof do you have of that? What evidence have you presented of that is also very valuable as well.
Right.
Because what are they going to say if they don't have any? Well, I just heard. Well, that's called hearsay. There's a name for that. You can't just hear. If you're going to make an
Yeah.
accusation, you need to present evidence or proof, right? I love
That
that.
usually ends it right there, Stephanie.
Mhm.
When you ask them for evidence and they don't have it, there's nothing they can say. There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Anything else, John, that you recommend that we can put in our proverbial
Yeah.
tool belt to arm ourselves with to
Yeah.
get out there and navigate this crazy world?
Yeah. Well, you know something, that's those are the easy things to start. And we can do another podcast
Yes.
with and go deeper into it because we could talk for hours about it.
Yeah.
Because there's just more and more coming into my mind, and
Okay.
but now we have this under our belt. Perhaps another time we can go really deep dive into um I'm gonna say uh the personal mastery part, how we show up and
Mm.
how we deal with all of that, navigate, because it's everywhere, Stephanie, and
Yeah.
especially now with an election coming up in 4 days.
Yeah.
It is a feverish pitch right now of slander and
It's insanity.
it's you know,
Yeah. You mean you're seeing stuff that you hadn't seen since kids are fighting on the playground anymore
right.
with the slinging and the just
Yeah.
the sophomoric childish rhetoric. It's what they call
Here's one,
inflammatory rhetoric, but
here's
it's
one more thing.
yes.
And this is just from talking to other folks now, because this topic comes up a lot. Is in my mind when I see somebody that's behaving like that, the laughing hysterical emoji.
Yes.
I just visualize that person with that face.
Okay, well that's better than what I do. I imagine them with the pile of poop face.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that does it for me. But the
Well, it's
smiling, the
me, actually
laughing is
me.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, the laughing is
it's
better.
me.
It's more mature.
Just laugh at them.
That's good.
But
Yeah.
you
And
said a key thing there. I haven't seen this since I was in the seventh grade.
yeah.
I've said that before, many times. Oh wow, I haven't been called a whatever word they called me since I was in the seventh grade. Congratulations, dude. Shut him right up. You know.
Right, that's funny.
So
That's good.
yeah, it's
We will
good.
definitely do a part two because the whole
Yeah,
goal here is to continue to master these life skills and become more and more confident and really live them out in a mode of strength and then empower others to do the same. So next time will be a deeper dive in this on this
yeah.
topic on the personal mastery side of navigating this narcissistic world that we live in these days. And I can't wait to get into that. That it's so beneficial and it's fun to talk about too, because we all have stories. We all have stories, so we can relate.
Get the life experiences, and share it with
Yeah,
the people that listen to you. So
that's right.
good one.
Absolutely.
Really, really good. Thank you very much for
Yeah,
having me.
thank you,
It's
John.
so good.
Appreciate your time as always. Can't wait till next time.
Yeah, yeah.